my channel. And I believe Rumble as well still needs to start. And we may have issues on Kick, which means I'd have to go in and get Kick started again. Yeah. Kick's an issue, so I'll have to go in and do a live stream on Kick.
Okay.
Manually by itself. I'll just do it like I did last night. I'll make the stream to where it's well, let me see something. Oh, that was weird how it did that. It seemed like it went through.
Over there on your.
Hold on, let me connect that again, or try connecting it and see what happens. I never really did look at that. It looked like it was trying to actually stream. No. Wait, there it is. It is actually doing. It's streaming. See, now it's telling me on my UI that freaking it's having an issue with streaming from Rumble.
From Rumble, okay.
Yeah, but there it is on Kick. It's actually working. They are messing it up.
Oh, Rumble? That place is?
Yeah, Kick is. So Kick is up and running, hopefully. And I'm going to check with, I'll check with, yeah, it looks like it's up and running on Twitch too. Yeah, sounds good. So we are up and ready to go. All right. So let me go in here and set up. Looks like everything is good. Okay, so let me step away real quick before we start. I'm gonna go get smoke in and then drink some coffee. We'll be back. Hopefully, if he wants to come in, he can come in. I'm gonna put some music on real quick so that everybody can have something to listen to. It's a song drop that I made. It's about 15 minutes long. Okay.
Yeah.
And we'll be back with Robert Hanson's The Unknown here in a minute. So let's just go ahead and do that.
Because I don't want too much noise, you know.
Yeah.
He drifts in through the heavy door, shadows stretching across the floor. A familiar ghost with a hungry soul, taking pieces to make him whole. No words required when he arrives, just the pulse of those restless lives. Infamous moving in the dim light, the routine of a long cold night. He is always around when the wind blows in, sucking the spirit right off of the skin. I like the way he lingers near, the only presence I hold dear. When infamous calls by to stay, the rest of the world just fades away. Yes, he is always around to bring the dark relief of everything. Constant as a winter rain, feeding on the joy and pain. He knows the route, he knows the part, the steady beating of a hollow heart. Never leaves a trace behind, just the solace I can find. Leaning back in the velvet chair, the scent of him is in the air. He doesn't ask and I don't tell, a secret toll of this private spell. Walking through the garden gate, defying every twist of fate. If the must finds a hidden vein to wash away the dust and stain. I knock upon the midnight glass, watching all the hours pass. The silence is a heavy weight until he opens up the gate. He is always around when the wind blows in, sucking the spirit right off of the skin. I like the way he lingers near, the only presence I hold dear. When infamous comes by to stay, the rest of the world just fades away. Yes, he is always around to bring the dark relief of everything. everything, every breath, every string. I can't pull you out of me. I can't let it fucking be. I'm so numb, overloaded where I live. Let me out of this tight and grip counterfeit. I'm so numb, I'm so numb, so numb. Overstayed inside my skin. Let me out again. Twisted nerve, paper thin. I'm so numb, I'm so numb. Hear it, I'm pushing it. Feel it under your skin. Hear it, I'm pushing it. Don't pretend it's not there. You wear it like a second face. You feed it just to numb the taste. I can't hold it back again. Cut me loose, cut me clean. There's nothing left in between. Cut me loose, cut me free. Or bury what's left of me. I'm so numb, overloaded where I live. Let me out of this tight and grip counterfeit. I'm so numb, I'm so numb, so numb. Break it open from within. Let me out again. Tear the nerve, let it spin. I'm so numb, I'm so numb. I'm so numb, I'm so numb.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to The Unknown. Tonight, we're going to step outside the familiar and take a look at the questions, mysteries, ideas, and subjects that make us stop and wonder. Some things have answers, some things have theories, and some things remain unknown. Tonight's host is my brother, Robert Hanson, and he'll be taking us through tonight's topics and sharing his thoughts along the way. So settle in, keep an open mind, and let's see where the conversation takes us. Ladies and gentlemen, here's your host, Robert Hanson. Robert, it's all yours.
Thank you, people, the ones that's listening and watching. And I want to introduce Roger Hanson to here, and V, who as well, and he has expertise. I deal with him. And here's Roger.
Okay, so you want me? The topic for tonight is the astral projection CIA. Let me pull that up. The astral projection CIA documents. Now, for that, the whole story behind that is the CIA documents that are on astral projection, and they center around the gateway experience. That's a 1983 military report titled Analysis and Assessment of Gateway Process. Now, that was declassified in 2003. The 29-page document explores using synchronized brainwaves, quantum mechanics, and meditation to achieve out-of-body states, remote viewing, and space-time transcendence. Now, the origins of this comes from 1983 when it was written by Army officer Wayne M. McDonald for the U.S. Army Intelligence and Security Command, which he was investigating training methods by the Monroe Institute. Now, the mechanics behind this, it uses audio gateway tapes, which is called hemisync, to match left and right brain hemispheres into a unified frequency. Now, the theory proposes that physical reality is a holographic projection of energy. Deep meditation allows consciousness to break free from the body and alter or perceive dimensions beyond normal limits. Now, page 25, which details the actual transition point of transcending physical dimensions, was left out during the 2003 declassification. It was later recovered and made public via Freedom of Information Act follow-ups. Now, when it comes to scientific status and the public reception behind it, mainstream science points out that the documents reflect exploratory military curiosity during the Cold War and linked it to broader efforts like Project Stargate, which is something that V mentioned earlier, rather than concrete scientific validation of physics phenomena. Now, when it comes to the online and the community views, when it comes to this subject, most platforms like Reddit, people who are on Reddit, they have, and other platforms, they have mixed feelings about it. Some internet users treat the text as proof of dimensional travel or spiritual awakening, while skeptics and researchers emphasize that the file heavily relies on unproven pseudoscientific speculation. So, with that, I hand it back over to you, Robert and B.
Well, my idea of it is, when this process is going through, does it increase? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear
Oh, okay. Does it increase the construction of your brain, where your brain's got to work in the process of mentally and physically enhance the process? Like they said that the brain is like made out of like the material, like not tar, but plaque in the brain, the veins and all that. Okay, by doing this, does it alter that stuff in any way to enhance the process and then enhance the capabilities of even longer and keep works with your, as they would say, your how long can you last without your body responding to the process, the blood pressure and all that, and what is the distance in the, like if have anyone ever noticed how far, what record has that ever shown, or and what is the medical thing of the process of long term of it, Raj?
So wait, you talking about like the vitals with the experiment, with the
Oh, yeah,
vitals and keeping track of?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I got caught up in trying to track that stuff down for you, so I had a hard time figuring out where the mute button is, but I will get back to you on that.
okay.
I mean, I assume that you would be in a minimal state. I'm usually a skeptic unless I've experienced something. And astral projection, I mean, when I was a kid, when I was 8 and 9 years old, I used to be able to astral project. I used to out-of-body experience all the time. In my late 30s, I tried getting to that state again and just having some sort of peace with my body, because I mean, I would tell my dad about this when I was a kid, and he would say, "Oh, you're able to do that because you're pure-hearted. You have no worries in the world. You're happy right now." It's like, that's kind of a good point. So I've tried getting myself to that state of mind again, and I'm so interested in what's going on the moon, because they're not telling us everything. Especially if anybody knows who Mike Barra is. He's a structural engineer. He's picked out all these things on the moon that are not natural. I would try to astral project out to the moon, yet I would always end up on Mars for some reason. I'd overshoot, and I end up on Mars. And I'm going to tell you that the astral plane for Mars is absolutely terrifying. But so this sort of thing, you're in a minimal physical state. I mean, low heart rate, control breathing. Because typically I would be able to do these sort of things near sleep. So.
But does it increases your brain?
Okay, so here is one I found. I was finally able to pull it up. Now, is what they have here, what I can see, it says no. So with the declassified CIA documents and what they put out, the documents don't present any scientific evidence or physical advancements or anything that's evolutionary or any kind of like permanent upgrades to the human brain. The papers basically focus on specific and temporary training techniques, that they called the Gateway experience. And this was analyzed by the U.S. Army, like I said earlier, in 1983. They what they do is the documents use like complex scientific and philosophical language, and they describe ways to like change the brain activity rather than any evidence of actual biological brain advancements. It's just basically like changing the brain's activity. You know what I mean?
You know, like the speed and the capability of processing.
Well, I mean, you mentioned the audio tapes. Now, some of the mind control experiments dealt with playing tapes and high speed so that you catch it subliminally, that sort of thing. It's suggestive programming, that sort of thing. So when they talk about synchronizing the hemispheres, you're talking about binaural synchronization. So it's supposed to, I mean, the idea is that you have some sort of oneness with the universe, I guess, when your brain is synced up. Because our brains, we literally have two brains. One half the brain acts independently of the other, biologically speaking. So syncing up the brains, there's not too much science documented, peer-reviewed science behind the effects of that. So there's much speculation that comes with it.
Well, why I say this for is when I forget his name, the one that came from Russia, the one with part of the nuclear bomb. He did that test on him, where it increases his memory, his brain. But when he passed away, his heart was not in good shape, but his mind was real sharp for a 24-year-old. Okay, now if a person implements something like that as construction of the brain to process to where and okay, how I want the question is from when from the beginning to the end of individual people, have the distance increased from their ability from the beginning to the end is the question too, because it's easy to say one thing, but facts do speak about if a person the distance of the abilities of that person. Okay. And like, what you call it when you're able to move things with your mind?
Telekinesis. Okay. Yes.
If they're able to use both, you know, if it increases or however they want to. I was wondering if they were both like that, you know, one person has that and doing that.
No, well, I can tell you that I have never used telekinesis, but I do have this ability when I'm really sharp. I can sense things that are falling, or I'll be able to catch something near me that's falling. I don't even have to hear it fall off a shelf or anything. I can feel something falling. I'll turn around and I'll catch it. I'll even catch stuff with my feet before it hits the floor, that sort of thing. That is the closest, and I start to think, is this a separate event from my mental state, or could I actually be causing these things and I'm auto-correcting? So it's kind of a bizarre thing, and it's a good question when you talk about telekinetics.
Now, there's a second part that comes to that too. That I probably should mention too, Robert. Now, it says that the documents highlight the following key observations regarding the brain. And the first one is the brain hemisphere synchronization, which is the hemisync. Now, the core of the document focuses on hemisync, an audio technique developed by the Monroe Institute. And that would probably relate to what V caught on to about the audio tapes. and the Monroe Institute was involved with it, and they called it hemisync. Now, most people use one side of their brain more than the other at any given moment. The report notes that using specific sound frequencies, which is binaural beats, it forces the left and the right hemisphere of the brain to synchronize. And this synchronization allows both sides to match the same electrical frequencies and amplitudes. The document also describes this as a state of laser-like focus, which the military hoped could be used to reduce stress and improve mental clarity. Now, then there's the second part, which was the quieting of the left brain. Now, the document also details how the audio tapes, how the audio tapes deliberately relax the analytical, logical left side of the brain, and by doing this, the brain shifts its focus away from input coming from the physical sense, and this creates an altered state of awareness where the person feels bodily or body sleep mind. Where the person feels the body asleep and the mind awake. And the third one is the medical explanation of astral projection. So while the report explores out-of-body experiences, which is OBEs, the astral projection, modern mainstream neuroscience does not view this as a spiritual superpower. Instead, mainstream science points to the region called the temporoparietal junction. This area handles your body image and sense of location. When this part of the brain is disrupted by intense meditation, sensory deprivation, or certain sound frequencies, it malfunctions. This malfunction tricks the brain into feeling like it is floating outside of the physical body, creating a high realistic illusion. And that's what they come up with there. Now, the classified CIA reports is something also that I should mention, comes from the Cold War era. Okay, and that's something that also has to be taken into account for, because like the CIA and the KGB, the Soviet Union and the United States, they always put out like bunk information to try to make it sound like the other side had come up with these amazing finds and research. So some of this stuff isn't true. Some of it is just made up. I do want to point that out.
Well, never going to keep the information straight, but what I can add, so you've heard me talk about this before. There's something called brain entrainment, where our brains are doing that constantly. Currently, we are in a ocean of frequencies. Okay, so but the standardized frequency is 60 hertz. Our electronics buzz at 60 hertz. That is the IEEE standard. Mm-hmm. So our brains are rapidly twisting and well, the cells, we have magnetosomes in your brain. They're violently twisting at 60 hertz when it's only supposed to actually oscillate at 7.4 or was it 7.8 Schumann resonance, the natural Earth frequency. So you have brain entrainment, and the brain does it automatically. There's nothing you can do about it. If somebody focuses a direct energy weapon at your head and pulses a frequency, then your brain is also going to be at that frequency. So as far as audio being able to do it, I don't see it being as plausible, because your auditory cortex is a very small part of your brain, and that's what would be receiving that information and deciphering what to do with that information. Uh, I don't think the auditory cortex can hijack the rest of the brain. However, uh, during an entrainment process with a frequency, yes, both hemispheres of the brain can actually sync up and get some possible effects out of it. So, Otto was mentioning the fact that the CIA was abducting people, giving them drugs to put their heads in microwaves, and they're having, these hallucinations like they're being uh, abducted by aliens. So that should give you the big picture right there.
Yeah. Well, okay, but here's the thing, okay. Now, since the construction of your mind and everything goes through a process, okay. I would thought that like your DNA, since you're going through a specific type of upgrade, more or less, okay, a new awakening of every part of your body and your mind, okay, that your mind, in a way, changes, in the way it handles data, information, and how it represents sounds, and like and like what you're saying too, and they have said too that like a tuning fork, your body's like a tuning fork. Each one has that ability, and within that thing, you would think if you know the tuning fork signia, I mean the frequency of that certain tuning fork of that person, you can locate and lock in on that situation like that. If like and but like your blood pressure and all that, does it get you go through a change more or less? The info because your mind goes through a change as well, building because I can't think of its name, but the well, he's a scientist back in the day. He was part of the nuclear bomb project, the first one. I can't think of its name, but well, when they did a test to his, when they did a thing of remove the brain, the guy did, his doctor did. He had a mind of a 26-year-old. Okay, by him exercising his mind, he has an ability like that, and not that long ago, and that's why I brought that up for, is that if his mind can be as sharp as that as a 25-year-old's mind, and he's 87, I forget how old he was when he passed away, and and for his mind to be real sharp, he has to have something there to tune his mind in a specific way. And they would have to do, you would think too, that would be part of the program too. And they're talking like sounds, microwave sounds, and all that. Like if what is the thing of people's health? Because the blood pressure, how because doing the process like that for a long period of time, what happens? Do they get dehydrated, or what is the signs of where they're losing?
Well, so I'm glad you were saying all this because I was going to say it. They'll say, "Oh, the brain was heightened to such levels where, oh, his brain like a 25-year-old and yada yada yada." But the thing about the brain, it does exhibit wear and tear. So this is why we have to sleep. This is why we can't be awake for 24/7. we got to have shutdown periods for the brain to get rid of toxins, the brain to do repair, for those new neural pathways to be um, cemented, that sort of thing. So even if there is a heightening, if there is a tuning, it can only last for so long before you have to have time to rest the brain, because the brain can burn out.
Okay, but well, but you would think, okay, if they have if an ability like that where they can pick up the tune of the person and they can use it to give that collect information about the locations and all that, and well, do they have an enhanced what you call it, where you feel things with like elusive dream? When you're in that state, do you have a like you feel, taste, and smell everything within that state? You know, you feel what surrounds you more or less. If something feels not right, you realize in it because something makes you feel, it enhances fear for the process.
Hmm. Well, what did the paper say?
Well, the one thing I want to kind of put in here too is like the concept of thresholds. Okay, now this is something I learned from real life experience, and I've actually seen this taking place a lot in different areas of our brains and just everyday life. The strain of what the human body takes and the thresholds we go through, you know, and you got to remember what this document is called. Okay, it's called the gateway experience, and a gateway is a threshold. All right. So instead of looking at this as like, instead of just looking at this as like a threshold or a gateway where you can actually leave your body, think of it also as a threshold that freaking um, that your body experiences. Okay. So if you take and you look at the concept of thresholds, and you'll actually see like the perfect way to understand the document is that the threshold is a boundary line or a doorway. All right, and that's the exact way that the document that that the Monroe Institute freaking describes it as, and that's the entire goal from that document. If you do that, when it comes to that one, and the whole idea behind it is to push the human brain past its normal everyday limits, basically,
Right.
so that it crosses over to like a specific threshold that they want it to be in. You know.
I've got a emergency communique. Let me get back to you guys in 5-10.
All right.
Okay. But yeah, hey Roger. But what I was referring to as well is when a person outside thinking of like what do they smell or anything that within an area like danger to
Okay.
where
So the best way for me to point out what I'm talking about though is it's like, okay, like your sensory perception. All right. Now every day your brain filters out like millions of pieces of data. Okay. Like the feeling of your clothes or the hum of the refrigerator. Okay. And the reason why it does that so that you don't go crazy. You know what I mean? And this is what your sensory threshold is. You know what I mean?
okay.
So those audio tapes that were mentioned, they're used in the study to try to lower your body's physical inputs to zero. Okay, now by blocking off sight and sound, the brain crosses a threshold where it stops listening to the outside physical world. Okay, so once you cross this line, the brain turns its attention entirely inward. You know what I'm saying?
Not really. In what way do they turn it in? What's the process for that?
They put you in a container that has water and it freaking induces freaking intense isolation to where you don't see nothing, you don't hear nothing, and the only thing you have is you floating in water. No sound, no nothing. You know what I mean? So your sensory perception is completely blank. Okay, and that causes your brain to think inward rather than outward about what's around you, and it just eliminates the entire real world.
Okay, but like since it's black area where you can't see nothing, but you're feeling. You can use your tub.
You're floating in water.
Okay, and so, like sounds, like you can tell, like if you're in water, you can still hear through the water, and you can still hear.
Well, I mean, you're talking about maybe short term. They did this for quite a long time. Okay, this wasn't something they just put you in there for an hour and stuff. This was deprivation. You know what I mean? They did this for quite a long time until your body freaking literally stopped listening to the outside physical world. Okay, so your body's physical inputs went to zero.
So like your motion for stay alive would be decreased a little bit.
No, they were at zero.
Oh, okay.
They didn't do it a little bit. They were just at zero.
Okay.
And then the second part for the threshold is the threshold of brainwave states. That's another thing that you have to look at. So when your brain operates at different speeds or frequencies, depending on what you're doing, beta waves are what you have to take into consideration. You have fast waves when you're awake and thinking. And then you have theta and delta waves. And these are the waves that V was just talking about, okay? But theta and delta waves, they're slow when you're deeply asleep, okay? So the CIA documents, they focus on crossing the threshold into the highly unusual hybrid state, okay, which is called Focus 10. Now, this is described as a specific boundary line where the physical body crosses the threshold into deep sleep, but the mind crosses the threshold into high alertness. So you have deep sleep, high alertness. So the mind's awake and the body is literally asleep.
Okay. And how they were saying something about there's like two different types of sleep. You know, where you go
There's
one
actually
to the other.
Yeah, there's three actually.
Okay. And how does that work with that?
Well, I don't have any of the notes up, but I can pull those up for you. I know there's REM. That's random. REM sleep is where your eyes start turning and stuff. Then you have deep sleep. Now, deep sleep is important because that's what helps clear out all of the pollutants and everything in your brain. It's kind of like a mental wash. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it also goes through a lot of the data that's in your brain from like a lot of the memories that they were talking about there, where like you have all this data that's collected in your brain for the day, and your brain while you're asleep is sorting through that and deciding what's relevant and what's not relevant. And it's getting rid of the stuff that it feels is irrelevant, and it's taking the stuff that it feels is relevant and it's putting it into storage, basically.
Okay, so you have an ability to take that ideal and put it into I know that might sound weird, but if you take it into another part of your mind, like lock it up in an envelope, you
Yeah.
know,
Compartmentalization is what it's
Yeah.
called.
if a person does that, they would have a way of opening it and covert, keep it hid. And with them 3 sleep things, how does that work with?
Now I can pull that part of the sleep stuff so that you can have all the information there without me going into conjecture and stuff. But there is also a third part that I can bring up here that could, because like after it goes from what we were just talking about there with the brain states, you have the threshold of hemisync, which the CIA was talking about in this document. Okay, and I can explain that to you. You want me to do that?
Yeah.
Because it's basically synchronization. Okay, so
But it just synchronize work with certain ones,
well,
or
I can give you this stuff now. So let me go ahead and put it out there. So normally the left and the right sides of your brain operates independently, like two different people talking at the same time. All right. And there's an electrical threshold required to get them to basically work together. Now, the document that we're talking about, it explains that once the sound frequencies hit a certain strength and rhythm, the brain passes a tipping point. Okay, it crosses the threshold into hemispheric synchronization, where both sides instantly snap into the exact same electrical rhythm, behaving like a single powerful laser beam, basically. You see what I'm talking about? So the left side of your brain and the right side of your brain is basically syncing up and becoming like a laser beam. It's they're one single powerful laser beam working together.
okay. And what happens to that little part in between, like the offensive part?
Well, that brings you into consciousness. That brings you into what I would call the threshold of consciousness, which would be the gateway. Okay. And like I said, if you take a look at the word gateway itself, it literally means a threshold. Okay. In everyday language, when you hear the word threshold, a lot of the times they're talking about the door you walk through, or freaking a gate, something like that. That's what they're talking about. It's a threshold, and you have to cross that threshold. Now,
Okay.
the report itself, it explores what they call basically it's a radical theory. Okay, so if the person can alter their brainwave enough, these guys believe that they might cross the ultimate threshold from our physical world into the non-physical reality.
Yeah, like pure energy.
Mm-hmm. Now, the military was interested in whether a soldier's consciousness could cross this threshold to gather information from like far away, which would be remote viewing or step outside of like normal time. So not only could they travel to far off places, but they could also travel between time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but people have heard and said, wouldn't that mess up the earth, like the energy of them?
Well, think of the brain as like a high-tech engine, right? the CIA document isn't about like upgrading the engine with like new parts. Instead, it's about reviving the engine in a very specific way to see what happens when you push it past its normal everyday threshold.
But that's what I was asking about. And because when you alter certain things of the human mind, doesn't it increase the perfection of the mind? That's what I'm referring to. Because with each new thing, the mind has to adapt. And like with like the body, the DNA too. The DNA has to work with the mind, okay, to keep it going, to operate it.
Yeah, I was finally able to pull up the different stages of sleep that you were wanting to hear about. So I can read it too if you want me to.
Yeah.
Okay, so your brain moves through 4 distinct stages of sleep every night. These stages are divided into 2 main categories, which is non-REM or NREM sleep, stage 1 and 2 and 3. And then you have REM, which is rapid eye movement sleep. So your brain constantly crosses thresholds between these stages, completing a full cycle about every 90 to 110 minutes. Now the first one is stage 1 in REM, and that's the transition. Now this is the light doorway between being awake and falling asleep. Your brain, your heartbeat, your breathing, and eye movements begin to slow down. Your muscles relax, though they may occasionally twitch, and that's known as hypnic jerks, which a lot of people can relate to if they've ever had that. That's what that's called. It only lasts about 1 to 7 minutes. Now, you can be easily woken from this stage, and you might feel like you weren't even asleep at some point. You know what I mean? But then there's stage 2 of NREM, which is light sleep. Now, your body drops its temperature and it disconnects from the outside environment, and your heart rate and breathing slows down even more. Your eye movements stop completely, and your brain waves become very quiet, but they are interrupted by like quick bursts of electrical activity called sleep spindles. Now this makes up about 50% of your total night's sleep. This stage is similar to Focus 10, which is mind awake, body asleep. Okay, that's the Focus 10 state, which is discussed in the CIA Gateway documents, where the body is like totally relaxed, but the mind remains on the edge of awareness. So that's stage 2 in REM, which is light sleep. Now you have stage 3 in REM, which is deep sleep, and that's what I was talking about. Now the body enters its most restorative physical healing state, and your brain drops into its lowest electrical frequency, producing slow, heavy waves called delta waves. Your muscles are completely loose, and it's very difficult to wake someone up during that stage. Now, this lasts for about 20 to 40 minutes per cycle, mostly occurring in the first half of the night. This is when your body repairs tissues, it builds bones and muscles, and it strengthens your immune system. So after that, you go into the REM sleep, which is the dream sleep. Now, the brain crosses a a wild threshold, basically, where the body is paralyzed, but the mind acts like it's wide awake. Your eyes dart rapidly behind your eyelids. Your breathing and your heart rate speed up to near waking levels. Your brain activity skyrockets, which is why most of your vivid, intense dreaming happens right here in this stage. So your first REM period lasts about 10 minutes, but it gets longer with each cycle. By morning, an REM stage can last up to an hour. Now, to keep you from physically acting out in your dreams and hurting yourself, your brain temporarily paralyzes your arms and legs. So that's basically the stages and what you're going through during your sleep. So
Okay, and in this state, what is it like when you have abilities like where you can move things around? But how does the mind handle that when you got that ability?
Well, you don't know for sure if anybody has that ability. That's why I'm just stating the facts on this stuff. Like a lot of that is hypotheticals. Mark Edworthy would call it conjecture. I'm not saying that this stuff is fact or fiction. You know what I mean? I do find a lot of it interesting. It really is.
I was wondering too. Remember in Florida when I got out of bed and we walked into the front room, out the door, and I was asleep, but I see everything, and you guys had to go out and get me. I was asleep, and I woke. I was still asleep, but I was my faculty was all there. I did not know. More or less, I was in control of what I was doing.
Now, see, when you talk about that, you're talking about sleepwalking. Now, I can pull that information up for you. And
yeah, but you don't not know you're sleepwalking.
Right.
I knew I was, but it was like I see everybody, but I couldn't wake up.
Now, the thing of it is it's like when the question is when does it happen? Okay, now sleepwalking doesn't happen during REM sleep. Instead, it happens during step 3, which is deep sleep. Okay, now during normal deep sleep, your brain is supposed to keep your body completely still. Now, in a sleepwalker, the brain gets stuck in a glitch between being awake and being asleep. And the motor section of the brain, which controls movement, suddenly wakes up, but the conscious section of the brain stays completely unconscious. Okay.
Have there been cases of people getting hurt or people breaking in when they're in that state?
Well, there's common actions which take place, and that's like sitting up in bed, looking around with a blank stare, or like walking around the house or opening doors. But then you also have what they refer to as complex actions, which is dressing yourself, eating food, or even trying to drive a car. Now, they do have another one called awareness, and that's where their eyes are like wide open, but they look right through you. They usually can't even speak coherently, and they won't even remember any of it when they wake up.
Because while I was asking in Florida, when I was 13, I heard about what happened with this girl. She was asleep, and she was supposed to went over to her boyfriend and heard him, and it's hard to say if it's true or not.
Mm-hmm. Now, see, they do say that it is genetics too. They say like if your parents sleepwalk, there's a good chance that you're likely to do it too. They also say that it's much more common in children because of their nervous systems and they're still growing, So most kids naturally outgrow it. A lot of triggers are a lot of things that trigger it, especially in adults, is usually extreme stress. You can have a lack of sleep. Some people they have a fever going on, or they're on certain medications. So, um, and the weird part about it is it's like it's actually created like a lot of folklore. Or a lot of people say that it's dangerous to wake a sleepwalker, and that's not true. Medically, it's not medically dangerous, but a lot of people will have their opinions on it. It's basically a myth, that waking them would cause them to have a heart attack. Waking them up suddenly isn't recommended though, because they will be really confused, terrified, and disoriented. So they might not recognize you and could like react violently or hit you, or push you or something like that. So the best thing to do is like gently guide them by the arm back to their bed without fully waking them up.
Yeah. Okay, but like in certain other states, like certain sound that can enhance other things like strength and all the like when you're asleep, but it activates your body's intention or the construction. They're always saying that certain sound triggers certain things in your mind.
Now, it does say that yes, sleepwalkers can sometimes appear to have intense, almost superhuman strength. Now, while they do not actually gain magical muscle power, their brains bypass the normal safety brakes that limits human strength during waking hours. This can make them incredibly strong, rigid, or difficult to restrain if they are startled or reacting to a night terror. And night terrors is something else that's a good topic to actually bring up too, because that's something that has now the brain allows for the intense strength due to three primary factors. The brain lacks the pain brake. Now, when you're awake, your brain constantly protects you from hurting yourself. If you try to lift something way too heavy, your brain registers pain or discomfort and tells your muscles to stop before you tear a ligament or break a bone. Studies show that sleepwalkers do not feel pain when they're sleepwalking. Because their conscious brain is asleep, the pain brake is turned off. They can pull, push, or lift things using 100% of their muscle fibers without stopping themselves out of fear or discomfort. The second thing that they mentioned is adrenaline in the fight or flight response.
Yeah.
Sleepwalkers often happens alongside sleep terrors, intense panic attacks that happen in deep sleep. If a sleepwalker is reacting to a perceived threat or gets startled when someone tries to wake them up, their brain floods their body with adrenaline. This triggers a phenomenon called hysterical strength. Now, adrenaline increases blood flow to the muscles and unlocks the absolute maximum force of the human body. And unlocks the absolute maximum force the body can generate. This is why a small child or a lightweight adult who is sleepwalking can sometimes break heavy objects or overpower a much larger adult trying to hold them down. Now, the third one is absolute focus and zero hesitation. Now, when you decide to lift a heavy couch while awake, you might hesitate, worry about your back, or think about how heavy it is. A sleepwalker has no conscious awareness, doubt, or hesitation. Their motor cortex is simply executing a command. This pure, unhesitating movement utilizes muscle coordination at maximum efficiency, which translates to a sudden burst of intense force. And this is dangerous. And the reason why this is dangerous is because sleepwalkers lack these internal safety brakes. They are at that time at a very high risk of injuring themselves or others during an episode, because they might accidentally rip heavy doors off hinges, push over heavy furniture, or hit someone trying to guide them back to bed, completely unaware of the damage they're doing. This is another reason why experts recommend that you never aggressively grab or tackle a sleepwalker. Their adrenaline-fueled response could cause them to fight back and with unexpected, dangerous consequences. They won't even know that it's you that they're fighting against. So that's enough of that. You've worked me thoroughly tonight, Robert.
Okay, but here's one other one. Okay, when you remember the nightmare that you had, okay, what do you call it? Where it's not your remember, but the fear factor, and you remember everything about it.
Well, I mean, I don't really. That's kind of like a curveball right there, because it's like people usually don't remember their sleepwalking experiences. So
I had 3 of them, but they were terrified. I remember I felt it, and it was clear as day. I know they call it the elusive dream, but what part of the mind that deals with that?
well, I mean, right here it says a high proportion of adult sleepwalkers actually do occasionally remember what they did and what they were thinking or the emotions they felt. And while it's a popular myth that sleepwalkers are completely automated or sleepwalking is completely automated and always forgotten, modern sleep science shows that memory recall is quite common in adults. And this happens because of a unique brain state called disassociated arousal, meaning parts of the brain are completely asleep while other parts are wide awake. So if the person remembers their sleeping experience, it is usually due to these primary neurological reasons. The hippocampus temporarily wakes up. High emotional triggers like fear and panic, waking up right after the episode. So, and they also say that why do adults remember more than children? And that's because children almost never remember sleepwalking because their brains are still maturing. A child's brain switches heavily between fully asleep to fully awake. Now, an adult brain is much more complex and prone to sleeping in a blended, partially awake state. Because of this, adults are much more likely to remember their thoughts during the episode even if they admit the next morning that their logic was completely nonsensical. So,
Okay.
so we basically have gone through about as much on this topic as we've gotten. We've gotten into more of like the scientific aspects of this. I think we've done a pretty good transition into the deeper topic, from where we started out. So, I mean, if you want to, do you want to go ahead and end this and kind of call it quits for the night?
Oh, well, is that all the information about it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh. Well, I have one more. Well, when they say what is the like if they use they can use a machine to just pick up the mindset of when you do that, and I was wondering what have picked up from the process when they found out using machine the progress of the human mind.
Well, that's a good question, and maybe we should bring that up later on because it's really, I mean, the stuff that we've been going through tonight has pretty much covered the sleep stages and stuff like that. I personally feel like that would just be beating a dead horse. You know what I'm saying? Because we would be going back into what we'd already discussed. There's nothing really new about what you just asked. You know what I'm saying? Like we've covered quite a bit about sleep.
Well, yeah, I was just wondering what I was referring to when you use your mind for moving things.
There's no evidence that that's actually taken place. You know what I'm saying? Like there's actually no scientific evidence that says people can use telekinesis. Nothing at all. Like that's
long range. They couldn't move nothing.
Right. I mean, like you can see that stuff on TV, on sci-fi movies and stuff like that, but there is no proof or evidence that that stuff is real.
Okay. Here's Lee.
Yeah.
How you doing, Lee?
It's a good one. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
All right.
So
where are we at?
Well, Robert has had me take him completely through the sleep cycle. Okay. And now he wants to talk about telekinesis, and I told him basically, I'm like, there is like no scientific evidence that telekinesis is actually something that has happened. Like you can see it on the sci-fi movies a lot, but scientifically they've never found any evidence that it's actually happening.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I left off.
Well, I was referring to as if they use telekinesis.
He really 100% believes that telekinesis is real.
As they say, mind over matter. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was wondering if you can use telekinesis, you can use it too to move things or find out better where it's at.
Well, you do understand that telekinesis is moving things, right? Like that's the whole reason for the word telekinesis. Like there's no other definition for it. Like you don't use telekinesis for anything else but moving things.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like how far can you do that with?
Well, you can't. Science hasn't proven that telekinesis exists. And see, that's a question that I've been trying to explain to you. Like you believe that exists, but there's no scientific evidence that anybody has ever done anything when it comes to telekinesis. There's Buddhists right now in India who believe that if they hop up and down, that they will eventually be able to float in the air. So they hop, okay, because they want to someday achieve the ability to freaking float. And to this day, not one Buddhist monk has been able to float in the air. Okay, that's the best I can tell you.
Despite all the levitation imagery.
All right.
Yeah, but what about like they talk about the third eye? How would that work in the process of in that?
Do you want to comment on that, V?
Well, the third eye is more an outer experience, consciousness going outwards. I don't know if that's a focal point to go inwards. I don't know, maybe.
It's like with me, I've been actually talking about consciousness a lot too, and a lot of like when it comes to the third eye. I've been finding out, if you really want to look at that stuff, you have to look at it about when it comes to consciousness. Is it really local? Is it really something that's just within the brain? Or is it freaking like your brain is actually like a radio that's picking up and transmitting consciousness? And that consciousness is actually, a universal thing. You know what I mean? And you're just picking it up like a radio receiver. So that's where I come in when it comes to like the third eye and how that works. So
there are many YouTube videos about that popping up in my stream.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, maybe you're listening to our Jitsi calls too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of people don't like, even people who are into the paranormal and stuff don't really like talking about it because, like we talk about remote viewing in here. A lot of people who are into parapsychology, who believe in remote viewing, don't like parapsychology, and parapsychology is all about freaking remote viewing. You know what I mean? They don't even like the whole topic of parapsychology, but they believe in remote viewing. So it's just that whole thing is kind of strange when you look at it, and it even goes deeper because like you get into parapsychology and you start learning that there's metaphysics along with physics. You know what I mean? And like people who believe in physics, they don't like the idea of metaphysics, because then they have to start talking about waves and signals and resonance. You know what I mean? And that's something that doesn't fit tightly in their box.
Well, I believe that, metaphysics is replaced by quantum physics, which we have very little understanding of. So, who knows? I mean, we might be more capable of doing things quantumly than meta,
Mm-hmm. Well, I for me, I personally don't. There's things that like they argue with in metaphysics. A lot of people who are not metaphysics, but quantum physics, that are just ridiculous. Like they don't agree with the idea of symbolism, but they use algebra, which consists of squares and rectangles and all these shapes. But that's not a symbol. That's math, buddy. You know what I mean? It's how you actually want to look at it. If you look at it with an open mind, you can see there's really no separation. You know what I mean? Like the only thing that separates colors is the length of the freaking wave. You know what I mean? That's it. But you gotta be able to kind of believe in that stuff, like a quantum wave. you know, that's
Well, quantum field background element. Yeah.
mhm. You know, that's one thing that's very controversial when it comes to the quantum physics crew. They don't really like the whole idea of discussing quantum fields and quantum waves and things of that nature. Because like our entire galaxy, according to that, would be sitting in the middle of a huge quantum wave that's way bigger than our entire galaxy. That's a huge freaking wave. You know what I mean? That's hard for people to comprehend or actually accept. You know, that's pretty intense when you think about it.
Well, I mean, physicists are saying that the quantum field is actually two-dimensional, and we are just a three-dimensional holograph projected from that two-dimensional uh, wave.
That would actually kind of go into what they were talking about in the beginning of this too, to be honest, if you really think about it. What was it? Yeah, yeah, they say right here, the assessment of gateway process. Now, the 25-page document explores using synchronized brainwaves, quantum mechanics, and meditation to achieve out-of-body states, remote viewing, and space-time transitions. And then it goes on to say it uses audio gateway tapes, which is hemisync to match left and right wing hemispheres into a unified frequency. And it proposes that physical reality is a holographic projection of energy. Deep meditation allows consciousness to break free from the body and alter or perceive dimensions beyond normal limits. That's exactly what they're saying right there.
So, like when your body, when you're in that state, and your body feels like sounds or something that can just cause you problems keeping your focus. How does the mind work then?
Well, see, the thing I brought up with that whole threshold thing, when it comes to the human threshold, okay, now there's one thing I didn't mention there that I know when I said in real life experiences, okay, like when you hit, you know how you were talking the other day about hitting rock bottom, okay? Now, when you hit rock bottom, there's something that happens. You cross over a threshold, and a lot of people have been talking about this, where freaking you cross over this threshold where freaking it's like they call it a spiritual experience or a spiritual awakening, a moment of clarity. It's that moment where everything makes sense. You know what I mean? It's like, and it just happens for a quick second. Your brain actually has a moment of clarity. You know, and you can have moments of clarity at different points in your life. It's not a one-time deal either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Speaking of moments of clarity, I've got to reset my router. Something's wrong. I'll be back.
All right. So yeah.
But it depends on just on the other circumstances, whatever is happening at that time. You can have one.
Yeah.
It's something like triggers that.
Well, yeah, that's what I was trying to say. You cross over a threshold. You have to cross over a threshold to have those moment of clarities. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And that's kind of what I'm talking about. You have to literally cross over a mental and physical threshold. You know? So that's one part I'm glad I was able to say. I'm glad you mentioned that. So
Because when it does bring up where it helps when you set it up to where you can acknowledge what happened.
I mean, I don't know how to add on to that, to be honest with you. I've run out of
Okay.
information.
But yeah, they come up with all new types of what we're talking about. There's different levels of it. So they're like the machine where they can read your mind, use pictures to where they can understand what you're dreaming of. And they can even use it for medical.
Okay. So are you ready to give it up for the night?
Yeah.
Okay. So I can go ahead and take us out. I'd like to say good evening, everyone, again, and I guess this brings us to the end of tonight's journey into the unknown. We've explored some interesting questions tonight. We've considered some possibilities, and hopefully we've given you something to think about after the show is over. Not every question is an answer. Not every mystery has been solved. And sometimes the most interesting part is simply asking the question. We'd like to thank everyone who took the time to join us tonight, whether you're watching live or catching the replay. From Robert and everyone here, thank you for being with us. Until next time, keep asking questions, keep looking for answers, and never be afraid to explore the unknown. I'm Roger, and this has been The Unknown. Good night, everybody. Okay, that's it. No.